The Ford streak came to an end at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Dale Earnhardt found victory lane the first time in 1992. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside Winston Cup Racing. Boy, it was a busy weekend here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we're going to cover all the action for you and much more in this half hour of Inside Winston Cup Racing.
The world's longest stock car race got even longer as 12 caution flags slowed the event and many cars. But a quick late race pit stop put Dale Earnhardt in command and then into victory lane. We'll have all the highlights.
Jeff Gordon put his off-the-track controversies behind him, outlasted Mark Martin, and drove past Dick Trickle to win a record-setting purse here in Charlotte. I'll have all the highlights of the Champion 300.
It was one race worth $1 million for Davey, Allison, but the hype before the 600 was even bigger than the payoff. We'll take a look at how Davey dealt with the pressure of the press.
We didn't have a whole lot of
Inside Winston Cup Racing is brought to you by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm. Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by Kodak Gold Film. Show your true colors.
The pressure was on Davey Allison going into the Coca-Cola 600, even though he didn't want to admit it, but he had an opportunity to win a cool $1 million from Winston if he could win this race. Of course, it didn't quite work out for him. He has one more opportunity, and that'll be in the Southern 500 at Darlington in September. There were some other stories that came out here this week. For more on those and highlights of the Coca-Cola 600, let's go to Randy.
During the Coca-Cola 600 weekend, there were several rumors that were swirling around in the Winston Cup garage area. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, many of those rumors turned out to be just that, but several of them had some concrete evidence. Here's what happened during the weekend of the Coca-Cola 600. It was confirmed that Busch Grand National driver Mike Wallace has been replaced by Jimmy Spencer as the pilot of the first 8 Oldsmobiles owned by Dick Moroso. Also, longtime Rick Hendrick employee and crew chief Richard Broom has left that operation to become shop foreman for the Bernstein racing team with driver Brett Bodine. The Coca-Cola 600, the world's longest stock car race, rolled to life for what would be the world's biggest crash fest, at least for the first half. Pole sitter Bill Elliott led the field of 42 to the green flag, but quickly gave up the top spot and never led one of the 400 circuits. Racing was kept to a minimum as 12 yellow flags for 62 of the first 280 laps were run at a reduced pace. Held together by a roll of tape just 20 laps in, the King was assured of another disappointing finish after starting 12th. At the front, the lead was shared by guys like Kenny Schrader, who led laps 31 through 59, and Kyle Petty, who put his Pontiac up front for a while, as well as Ricky Rudd, who had a great run until losing a lap under a green flag pit stop. That is, until a caution flag flew, and there were plenty of those. Like on lap 121, Mark Martin got nudged from behind by Rusty Wallace. Mark went for a ride and ended up taking out Derek Cope, Bud Strickland, and the King once again. The next caution flag flew as NASCAR had some equipment that was out of place, which allowed Ernie Irvan to regain one of his 2 lost laps. He would get the other one back later on. Lap 134, Greg Sachs got loose, taking Gary Ballou to the wall and sending many front runners scattering through the Coca-Cola grass. Lap 141, Michael Waltrip lost it and Dick Trickle also spun. Kenny Schrader and Darrell Waltrip were collected. All would continue after some cosmetic work. Caution number 9 was for Dave Mader's blown engine. Darrell Waltrip's dismal day would end shortly after that. Caution number 11 was for Morgan Shepherd and Joe Ruttman. In the final yellow flag, Sterling Marlin marred the side of Dale Jarrett Chevy. Jarrett would finish 12th, Marlin 22nd. The final 170 laps went clean and green, and it appeared Kyle Petty was in position to pick up his first win of 1992 as he would lead for 125 of his 141 laps out front. The race came down to final pit stops, with Petty pitting on lap 345 and Ernie Irvan running second right on his tail. But after all the leaders had pitted, it was Dale Earnhardt that was in the driver's seat. Ernie Irvan and Petty battled for second until Kyle faded in the sun. Meanwhile, Davey Allison, who had a shot at the Winston Million, his car also faded, but he would finish a solid 4th. Ernie Irvan tried to track down Earnhardt over the final 10 laps, but could get no closer than 2 car lengths. Earnhardt would pick up his career win number 53 on his 400th Winston Cup start.
Boy, was he ever chasing me. But, you know, he raced hard and he raced clean. He knew I was going to hold my line and he was going to have to try another line, and it was a good race.
You know, I could catch him and then I'd lose him, and then I'd catch him, I'd lose him. I just never had enough to actually pass him. You know, I had enough to get up there and run with him, but I didn't have enough to beat him.
Well, Davey Allison didn't win the Winston Million, but he did increase his lead in the point standings going into Dover this weekend. We need to take a short break. Still to come are highlights of the Busch Grand National race, the Champion Spark Plug 300, and we'll also take a look at how Davey Allison handled the pressure going into the Coca-Cola 600 with that opportunity to win $1 million. And as we leave you for this break, here's the balance of the finishing order for the Coca-Cola 600. The hype was tremendous on the Winston Million and Davey Allison going into the Coca-Cola 600. In 1985, Bill Elliott was in a similar position. He could win the Winston Million if he could win the Coca-Cola 600. He said it was the worst week of his life with all of that attention. We decided that we'd take a look at the attention that Davey Allison got going into the Coca-Cola 600.
After conquering both the Daytona 500 and the Winston 500, Davey Allison's charge towards taking the Winston Million was nothing short of a media extravaganza, which wrapped around 2 weeks of racing at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And the finish of the Winston All-Star race only heightened the hype surrounding the Hmiel Ford driver. While Davey recuperated from the accident Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the media managed to make a story out of the hood of his crashed race car. They acquired it and auctioned it off for charity. On Wednesday, Allison was back at the track, and so was the media. Davey seemed calm, cool, and collected, but the press got all shook up when Davey decided to let veteran driver Hmiel Bonnet shake down his Hmiel Ford.
We told everybody we'd be here today to let them know what happened and how things stand, and here we are. But first, thanks. Now,
prior to qualifying, a press conference was held where Davey provided answers to the $1 million questions and his Alabama connections.
Mostly it's allowing me to take some time to recuperate and to get feeling better. Neil is a good friend of mine, and a lot of people don't realize that Neil's actually the one that gave me the opportunity to be where I'm at right now. I drove his car in 1986 at Talladega after he injured his shoulder at Pocono the week before.
It's kind of surprised me. Davey's really focused. You know, he's got a lot of things in the works, and, you know, he was talking about, man, who would ever thought this 2 years ago? And here he is right in the middle of leading the points for the championship with the $1 million up for grabs and being pretty darn mature. He's really handling himself well, and I wouldn't expect anything different from him.
He was a little bruised up, but still qualified 17th. The saga continued. Could he win the race? Could he even go the distance? For newspapers and television, it had the potential to be a $1 million story.
I'd be very surprised if most motorsports publications or writers didn't follow the story very closely and the repercussions thereof. So I think it's very high. It's got to rate very high on the list. You got to consider what's at stake and the man doing it. Davey right now, with his accomplishments, his victory in the Winston and the Winston Million, all eyes are on him. Whether you like him or not, the eyes are on him, and it's our job to report what he does and how he goes about doing it, as you well know.
Television sportscasters from all over the South were there to get the inside scoop. Davey Allison and the Winston Million, still 5 days away, was headline news.
Oh, Davey Allison, I think, was the biggest story here because he was the fellow that people were calling and asking the questions about. They wanted the health report on him. Would he be able to race? Obviously, he was going to be able to race. He's a tough kid, and you knew he would be out there. So, he was the big story. He was the one who kept the telephones ringing, and especially on qualifying day, they wanted to know where he qualified. And I think to qualify 17th, I think he did a heck of a job out there.
Davey, can I get you?
Gotta go.
Driver's meeting?
Gotta go.
We'll get you next time by. Even though it was tough to get even a few minutes of his time, if you waited your turn, he tried to squeeze you in. Davey, you got a second?
Man, I'm telling you,
Too busy.
we're running wide open.
Okay, man.
Catch you next time.
All right.
And it was old Big Jeff.
Well, we hoped. On Thursday, television media that couldn't be in attendance for the 600 took turns talking with Davey. 5 minutes apiece for stations like WABC in New York and KRON in San Francisco. All got 5 minutes with the one man that had a shot at the Winston Million for the first time in 7 years.
Talk about, you mentioned the pain in your shoulder and other bumps and bruises you've had.
The wreck in the Winston upset Allison's entire schedule for days. The restructuring of that schedule was the responsibility of PR man Brian Vandercook.
Sunday was supposed to have been Liz Allison's day, which was a day kind of set aside anyway. But then Monday there were 3 different things that had to be canceled. There was a charity fishing tournament. There was a satellite news conference, which of course has been, as you can see, been rescheduled. And then we also had an appearance, a personal appearance that evening. And then Tuesday we wiped everything off the calendar. Also similar busy day for Davey Allison. And then Wednesday we tried to kind of get back to normal.
We've had a hard time getting him for Inside Winston Cup. When are we going to line that up?
We'll keep pecking at it. I'm sure the clock is working against us, but we're going to try to do it.
All right, guys. Finally.
Can you talk to some technical people over here? There's a nice group.
Sorry.
Sunday morning, it was more of the same for Davey. After a 4th place finish in the 600, I'm sure the story was what happened, and it was asked a million times. He's got one more chance in September in the Southern 500. And we promise between now and then, we'll have a chance to talk with the potential $1 million man.
Well, Davey does have one more opportunity, and that'll be at Darlington in September, and you can rest assured the media hype will increase by then. We need to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have highlights of the Champion Spark Plug 300 Busch Grand National Race, and we'll also have the mailbox. And as we leave you for this break, here's this week's Haviland Track Talk.
This edition of Track Talk is brought to you by Haviland. Add more life to your car.
Ford's string of consecutive Winston Cup wins was finally snapped at Charlotte last Sunday. But while Ford drivers were celebrating in Victory Lane, Ford dealers were celebrating in the showroom, knowing that participation in NASCAR gets attention and success means more business at their dealerships.
We've done a lot of research, and motorsports, and especially a circuit like NASCAR, has a big impact and a very favorable impact on consumers. In fact, I think last year, more than 12 million people watched NASCAR events locally, at the track, and over 400 million people watched races on television. We did some research with NASCAR fans themselves, and almost 3/4 of them, 73%, of NASCAR fans said that it was a very important factor in their purchase decision of the cars and trucks that they bought. With all those fans, obviously that's a big group of people that you're appealing to.
Ford gets more than just positive marketing from its racing involvement. Technology transfer, such as learning about aerodynamics, electronics, and handling, is a valuable asset. But research shows a strong sense of consumer loyalty among NASCAR fans, which means no matter who wins, the Ford-Chevy battle will continue on and off the track.
Winston Cup stars go from one grueling race to another as they tackle the Monster Mile in Dover, Delaware. Ken Schrader outlasted the competition in last year's Budweiser 500. We'll see if he can do it again. We'll have highlights.
After plenty of bumming and banging at Charlotte, the Busch Grand National Series moves to the 1 mile track in Dover. I'll have all the highlights of the Goodwrench AC Delco 200.
The medium of television has taken stock car racing to new heights in recent years, and we'll show you what it takes to get the action from the track to your living room next week.
History was made in the Champion Spark Plug 300 NASCAR Busch Grand National race here this past weekend at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. First of all, a Ford got into victory lane for the first time ever here in that series. And 20-year-old Jeff Gordon started on the pole and won the race, and it was worth over $113,000 to him, the largest purse ever for the series. For that story and more, here's Bill Weber.
The 42-car field rolled out for the 300 miles at Charlotte, with Jeff Gordon on the pole for the 5th time this season. Starting outside row 1, Jack Sprague led the charge on the opening lap, but the man on the move was Mark Martin, grazing Gordon in a group in turn 2 and blasting by Sprague in turn 4 to lead the opening lap. It was only a matter of moments before Martin flexed his Ford muscle and buried everybody. Only under caution could the field catch Martin. Winston Cup veterans Dick Trickle and Dale Earnhardt led an all-star parade trying to bounce Martin from his leading role. On lap 25, Sprague brought the show to a halt, spinning in 2. Tracy Leslie knocked down the wall, and Chuck Bound's bad luck was evident. His Nescafe Pontiac was hit by at least 4 cars. The crash also collected Rick Mast, Shauna Robinson, and Joe Nemechek, who finished 22nd and fell from 2nd to 4th in points. On lap 93, Martin's story had an unhappy ending when his engine expired. Gordon took his Baby Ruth Ford to the front, while Martin took his Winn-Dixie Ford to the checkout lane. A mandatory caution on lap 100 gave the drivers a 15-minute break, with Gordon leading the way.
Oh man, it's been wonderful. I tell you, after all the controversy we're going through, this team has given me 100%. I'm driving this thing as good as I can. And when you put a good piece of equipment under me and got good guys working with me in the pits, it really helps. And the car's driving great. And to be able to run like this out here with these veterans and these top Busch guys, it's unbelievable. It's a dream come true.
On lap 108, Trickle took the lead from Gordon, but Jeffrey captured the lead on lap 122. Jeff Burton, Todd Bodine, and Butch Miller all made cameo appearances as the leader before Trickle returned to the front on lap 142. Kenny Wallace was running in the top 10 when he bumped with Todd Bodine at turn 4. Wallace was sent crashing into the wall and finished 25th. With 38 laps left, Gordon tangled with Trickle as he recaptured the lead with a daring and determined pass in turn 4. Jeff was never threatened the rest of the way, but there was a thrilling race for second between Trickle and Bodine, a race that ended on lap 199. The field finished under caution, with Gordon taking the checkers. Bobby Labonte was second and Morgan Shepherd third. It was Gordon's second win of the season, beating his Busch rivals and the respected invaders from the Winston Cup ranks.
Even though, I will be going there next year with Hendrick, I'm going to try to do everything I can, not to beat those guys. I'm trying to go out and run with who's ever fast. If it's a Busch Grand National driver, if it's a Winston Cup driver. More times than any on a super speedway, it just happens to be a Winston Cup driver.
Thank you, Joe.
Today's mailbox is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft.
Our question this week is from Edward Webb of Raven, Virginia, who writes, I would like to know what is meant by the terms bite and wedge, and how is this adjustment made on the cars? Well, Edward, for that answer, we'll go to Steve Hmiel, who's the crew chief on the Valvoline Fords that Mark Martin drives.
Edward, that's a good question because you hear those terms used a lot. Bite and wedge are actually the same thing. I always call it wedge, and that's how much more the left rear tire weighs than the right rear tire when you set the car on scales, when you're setting your car up to go racing. The reason they use the term wedge is that years ago when they had leaf springs, they used to drive wedge blocks in between the different leaves of the springs in order to make the wheels weigh more. Now we just do it with the screw jacks.
If you have any race questions, write to us at Inside Winston Cup Racing, Box 240417, Charlotte 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Genuine Draft jacket free. You'll also receive a free copy of NASCAR videos, A Week in the Life of a Race Team. the latest volume in the exciting series, bringing the NASCAR lifestyle roaring into your living room.
The hype, the spectacle, and the summer speed weeks have come to an end here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and were they exciting? Well, our time's up. Hope you enjoyed the show, and you be sure to be with us here next week when we'll come to you from Dover, Delaware. See you then on TNN.
Inside Winston Cup Racing has been brought to you by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm. Hmiel Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. And by the First Brand Corporation, makers of STP Son of a Gun Protectant. Transportation for the Inside Winston Cup Racing crew provided by Fleetwood Enterprises, makers of a full line of excellent recreational vehicles. Promotional consideration and a fee paid for by the Champions Press, creators of the finest collectibles in the history of Winston Cup. And by NASCAR Video, taking you behind the scenes to meet the top drivers and personalities in the sport. Get your first volume featuring a week in the life of a race team. Order today.
American Sports Cavalcade, 7 p.m. Eastern on TNN Sports Sunday.
This is TNN, the Nashville Network, the #1 source for country music, entertainment, and information.